The exciting conclusion of The Lightning Thief. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Book 1 by Rick Riordan, brought to you by Mrs. Domino, courtesy of the permission of Disney Publishing. I will keep you waiting no further. Then I heard yelling, elated screams, and I saw Luke racing toward the boundary line with the red team's banner lifted high. He was flanked by a couple of Hermes guys covering his retreat, and a few Apollos behind them fighting off the Hephaestus kids. The Ares folks got up, and Clarice muttered a dazed curse. "A trick!" she shouted. "It was a trick!" They staggered after Luke, but it was too late. Everybody converged on the creek as Luke ran across into friendly territory. Our side exploded into cheers. The red banner shimmered and turned to silver. The boar and spear were replaced with a huge catechus, the symbol of Cabin 11. Everybody on the blue team picked up Luke and started carrying him around on their shoulders. Chiron cantered out from the woods and blew the conch-horn. The game was over. We'd won. I was about to join the celebration when Annabeth's voice right next to me in the creek said, "Not bad, hero." I looked, but she wasn't there. "Where the heck did you learn to fight like that?" she asked. The air shimmered, and as she materialized, holding a Yankees baseball cap as if she'd just taken it off her head. I felt myself getting angry. I wasn't even fazed by the fact she'd just been invisible. "You set me up," I said. "You put me here because you knew Clarice would come after me while you sent Luke around the flank. You had it all figured out." Annabeth shrugged. "I told you, Athena always has a plan." "A plan to get me pulverized." "I came as fast as I could. I was about to jump in, but—" She shrugged. "You didn't need any help." Then she noticed my wounded arm. "How did you do that?" "Sword cut," I said. "What do you think?" "No, it was a sword cut. Look at it." The blood was gone. Where the huge cut had been, there was a long white scratch, and even that was fading. As I watched, it turned into a small scar and disappeared. I I don't get it," I said. Annabeth was thinking hard. I could almost see the gears turning. She looked down at my feet, then at Clarice's broken spear and said, "Excuse me, step out of the water, Percy." "What?" "Just do it." I came out of the creek and immediately felt bone tired. My arms started to go numb again. My adrenaline rush left me. I almost fell over, but Annabeth steadied me. "Oh, sticks," she cursed. "This is not good. I didn't want... I assumed it would be Zeus." Before I could ask what she meant, I heard that canine growl again, but much closer than before. A howl ripped through the forest. The campers' cheering died instantly. Chiron shouted something in ancient Greek, which I would realize later, only later, I had understood perfectly. "Stand ready! My bow!" Annabeth drew her sword. There on the rocks just above us was a black hound, the size of a rhino, with lava-red eyes and fangs like daggers. It was looking straight at me. Nobody moved except Annabeth, who yelled, "Percy, run!" She tried to step in front of me, but the hound was too fast. It leaped over her, an enormous shadow with teeth, and just as it hit me, as I stumbled backward and felt its razor-sharp claws ripping through my armor, there was a cascade of thwacking sounds, like 40 pieces of paper being ripped one after the other. From the hound's neck sprouted a cluster of arrows. The monster fell dead at my feet. By some miracle, I was still alive. I didn't want to look underneath the ruins of my shredded armor. My chest felt warm and wet, and I knew I was badly cut. Another second, and the monster would have turned me into 100 pounds of delicatessen meat. Chiron trotted up next to us, a bow in his hand, his face grim. Immortalis, Annabeth said. That's a hellhound from the fields of punishment. They don't. Well, they're not supposed to. Someone summoned it, Chiron said. Someone inside the camp. Luke came over, the banner in his hand forgotten, his moment of glory gone. Clarice yelled, It's all Percy's fault! Percy summoned it! Be quiet, child, Chiron told her. We watched the body of the hellhound melt into shadow, soaking into the ground until it disappeared. You're wounded, Annabeth told me. Quick, Percy, get in the water! I'm okay. No, you're not, she said. Chiron, watch this. I was too tired to argue. I stepped back into the creek, the whole camp gathering around me. Instantly, I felt better. I could feel the cuts on my chest closing up. Some of the campers gasped. Look, I don't know why, I said, trying to apologize. I'm sorry. But they weren't watching my wounds heal. They were staring at something above my head. Percy? Annabeth said, pointing. By the time I looked up, the sign was already fading, but I could still make out the hologram of green light spinning and gleaming. A 3-tipped spear. A trident. Your father, Annabeth murmured. This is really not good. It is determined, Chiron announced. All around me, campers started kneeling, even the Ares cabin, though they didn't look happy about it. My father? I asked, completely bewildered. Poseidon, said Chiron, Earthshaker, Stormbringer, father of horses. Hail, Perseus Jackson, son of the sea god. Holy moly. So, all of the foreshadowing, I hope you have seen that every single bit. Here's the thing about foreshadowing, which is very interesting. Most of the time, we don't realize it was foreshadowing until after we know the events of the story, which sounds really strange because foreshadowing tells us of something coming. Sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes you just get into the story and you're like, oh, that's why that happened. But the author does try to embed that in there. I haven't been stopping as much to point things out and call them to your attention because I'm trying to get so much text in these videos. But I do want to call this to your attention. The top of page right here, left column. This is an amazing metaphor. It says, she's tried to step in front of me, but the hound was too fast. The hound leaped over her, an enormous shadow with teeth. So basically, the hound is the shadow. And then thwacking. Thwacking is onomatopoeia, that attempt to make a sound. And then the sounds were like 40 pieces of paper being ripped one after the other. That would be a nice simile. I will tell you that there is a ton of figurative language in this book. If I stopped every single time there was figurative language, I would never get through a book. So, I do hope as you're reading that you will take some time and let that sink in. Now that Percy's been claimed, what do you do now? Well, chapter 9 is called I Am Offered a Quest, and I will go ahead and read this first little bit of chapter 9. The next morning, Chiron moved me to cabin 3. I didn't have to share with anybody. I had plenty of room for all my stuff, the Minotaur's horn, one set of spare clothes, and a toiletry bag. I got to sit at my own dinner table, pick all my own activities, call lights out whenever I felt like it, and not listen to anybody else. And I was absolutely miserable. Just when I'd started to feel accepted, to feel I had a home in cabin 11 and I might be a normal kid, or as normal as you can be when you're a half-blood, I'd been separated out as if I had some rare disease. Nobody mentioned the hellhound, but I got the feeling they were all talking about it behind my back. The attack had scared everybody. It sent two messages. One, that I was the son of the sea god, and two, monsters would stop at nothing to kill me. They could even invade a camp that had always been considered safe. The other campers steered clear of me as much as possible. Cabin 11 was too nervous to have sword class with me after what I'd done to the Aries folks in the woods, so my lessons with Luke became one-on-one. He pushed me harder than ever and wasn't afraid to bruise me up in the process. "You're gonna need all the training you can get," he promised as we were working with swords and flaming torches. "Now, let's try that viper beheading strike again. 50 more repetitions." Annabeth still taught me Greek in the mornings, but she seemed distracted. Every time I said something, she scowled at me as if I'd just poked her between the eyes. After lessons, she would walk away muttering to herself, "Quest, Poseidon? Dirty rotten. Gotta make a plan." Even Clarice kept her distance, though her venomous looks made it clear she wanted to kill me for breaking her magic spear. I wish she would just yell or punch me or something. I'd rather get into fights every day than be ignored. How many of you feel that way? Like, if somebody's really, really mad at you, at least if you're arguing and yelling at each other, don't you think that, like, at least they're interacting with you? But when somebody stops arguing and just ignores you, to me, that's almost the worst thing that can happen. It's so frustrating when somebody just acts like you don't exist. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for this section of the chapter. Tomorrow, well, I say tomorrow, but the next installment will come. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am because I really do miss reading this in the classroom. So until next time, my friends, keep reading.